Hello. Hi, Kenny. Thank you very much for 17 months of support. I really do appreciate that. Hope you're well today. Whew. My day is going interestingly. Yesterday I said have a good weekend to someone when I'm going to see them tomorrow, but in my brain I thought it was Thursday. So I thought today was Friday, which is a disappointment when it when it quite clearly isn't. So that's fun. Um, do I want to do this? I really have fun with reactive programming. Nice. I genuinely would like to know more in like how I would use reactive stuff. There's a lot of there's reactive extension stuff in .NET that I've looked at before, but never quite wrapped my head around how I would even apply what is there. Um, Maybe it's not for what I do, um, but I've looked at it over the years um, in different ways. And it was started as a um, an alignment with RxJS back years ago. I do believe. Morning, Delta. Um, It's stuff where you have to deal with multiple events at once. Mostly good for UI stuff, but can also be used for like WebSockets where you get a lot of events. Yeah, yeah, it'd be interesting to play. Manoj, hello. How are you doing? Been a while. Hope you are well. Um, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. The immediate case that comes to mind is more one of kind of my changes where I'm using Akka in the changes component to basically deal with that exact thing, right? Where I'm in the pipeline stuff. Basically, I receive an event and then hand it off, and that actually distributes that so it can turn around and get the next event. So you can actually have many changes being processed in parallel. Akka will allow you to scale up that uh, performance, but only one message can be in any one um, piece at once. So it's kind of a pipeline of data. Um, so it's kind of an interesting uh, design, but that's a similar enough um, challenge in terms of um, multiple events. So let's uh, let's start today with review. Camera's off because the light's bad and I do not want to mess around with the key light today. I have a headache, so I do not want a bright light shining in my face. And it's kind of dark today because it's overcast and rainy. So I will just try and remember to continue to speak rather than sit here with my normal pauses, which I realize is difficult for me. So yesterday, um, you need to debug reactive stuff without stat trace because stat trace is absolutely misleading. Yeah, yeah, it can be a challenge, right? Um, so yesterday we kind of worked through the task stuff. We got um the assigned team to the task, etc. Define UI for teams. These were working yesterday. Um, and the task that I had at the end of yesterday's stream was to go off and get the view components. Um, you started using CodeGen AI in your workflow? No. No. Um, we've been talking about this. So yesterday I was watching some of the build stuff, and um, I actually did experiment a little bit with some stuff, um, and it hasn't really changed my mind. It's made me a little bit concerned for what it means from a creativity perspective and a control perspective. Um, um, yeah, build was the in person wasn't full of AI. There was actually other talks, but um, I think it would be foolish for us to ignore it. I think it is. I genuinely feel that it is a necessary um, tool to understand. I don't disagree with one line in terms of it being a tool that we should we could use. Um, um, I yeah, I think it's. I think the problem is the more pro AI people are the ones that have spent more time trying to use it and embrace it. Um, and I think that is the difference. So the ones of us that are not quite fully on board with it are have not um always given it the right amount of time. Um, not generally sweeping statement there, but I've been trying to understand what it means without diverting myself because of my usual approach. Yeah. Um, yeah. Shout out to Canny. If you enjoy uh, development content in general, very smart content. Not just it does work in Godot and does do some game dev, but does a lot more beyond the game dev as well, which is fascinating to watch. And it's a highly fun stream to be in, especially with co-hosts regularly. I would highly recommend checking out Canny stream if you have not done so. It's a really good starting point, at least for documentation and presentation kind of stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't. I think we've got to be careful that businesses understand what it means to have AI generated code, um, the cost of having it. The I've been experimenting with something and changing it and watching it go through. Um, the process is quite fascinating, but at the end of the day, I don't know what it's done. Um, it will take me a long time to go figure out the style, the patterns, like because it's obviously taking this from other people's code um, over years. Um, Maintenance of that is like um, deploying the application is handled in it. Maintenance of that is handled in it. The database is managed by it. If I want to change it, what happens? AI won't go away. I think everyone should find a good way of integrating it into their workflow somehow. Um, in my general workflow, my workflow is using it as a search tool, right? I fully believe that it is a much better version of Google, especially for development and questions like we have. I think it's a tool that is where I find it the most useful is brainstorming a little bit and using it in that manner. Um, Using it for the code, right? But using it for the code, uh, it's boring and uncreative, and it's boilerplate. It will come out with the same application. So for reference, several we've in talking about Liquid Sky Offstream, this layout is heavily AI influenced, right? Um, if you generate anything to do with Liquid Sky, this is pretty much the first thing that comes up in every single tool I've chosen to use. This comes up. And just to prove that, I will actually share what I was actually tinkering with, right? The panels is the first thing that appears, right? First thing. Um, it's not very creative because it's going to use what I ask it to do, and it's going to come up with some standard patterns and produce something. So it's not going to be very inventive. Um, I think again, I think we're able to disagree on this, but I think AI as a tool has become a massive thing in a very short amount of time, and it would be foolish to ignore it. Genuinely feel it would be foolish. I'm not trying to be offensive there. I just think it's something that you should not ignore. You should uh, have uh, some idea of how it can be used, and if a business is asking you to use it, understand how to relay properly the cost of doing so. I think I tend to disagree. I think it is massively revolutionary. From a development perspective, obviously, don't forget we are talking from a development perspective here. We do this professionally. We build software. We're now seeing companies like Microsoft produce tools that produce software, and very quickly. If you watched any of the build demos yesterday, Microsoft built an application using agents in a very short amount of time, including debugging and changing and fixing. I've actually experimented with that myself in that replit. Um, and you know, as to Mojo's point, like using prompts properly, you can do some pretty cool things. But um, I worry for the point when the application don't do what they do, and the context is lost, or the person who wrote the prompts originally, who has that knowledge, doesn't know how to necessarily document it. What happens then? Um, it helped me save a lot of time in different aspects of my life. I try to use it right now as a core concept for a game like thing, and it works wonders. I think, yeah, I think it's, but look at how much fine tuning you're having to do to that, right? Yeah. Um, Look how much work you're having to put in, Canny, to make it actually understand what's being said and the differences in the way people say things and how to interpret that. It's just, it's sending you around in circles a little bit because it doesn't always get it, right? The consistency is there. It's really good in generating an awesome sales pitch, ads, planning a holiday, etc. Planning a holiday, interesting. Um, Again, the lack of originality makes me worry for the sales pitch and ads, etc. Like it will be consistently the same thing. No face because I can't deal with the light in my face today, and the light is bad in this room. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have to remember to more or talk more. So please forgive me. I know that I pause as is on camera, but at least you can see my face then. The narrow field of coding tools, I think, is very limited. I think in the broader sense, it's the opposite, pretty revolutionary. I don't know. That build stuff yesterday blew my mind a little bit as well. Mojo, hello. I mean, like with every tool, you should be careful how to use the tool. Like you wouldn't try to use a motor in your living room to power a light bulb. Right, but you also understand what that motor's doing all the time. You understand why you're not doing that. um, I watched the keynotes primarily, and I watched the one of the talk. I can't remember. I'll find it afterwards. You wouldn't. Unpacking the tech was that was that was the one that Sati got disturbed in. Also, if any of you guys watched it or you do watch it, let me know. Do you think they're screaming a lot, or is it just me being sensitive? I felt like I was being shouted at for most of those talks, and I don't know. Maybe I'm getting more sensitive, but I did not like the tone of the way that things were being presented. And also, if I hear with great power comes great responsibility one more time, I'm going to scream. Like, yes, there was a political. No, I don't think I'd deem that necessarily political, but there was some disagreement with. There was some screaming, and they got pulled out. That was a Microsoft employee, probably a former employee now, but a Azure firmware developer and a former Google employee. They were the people that got removed, according to the news sites last night. Yes. Yeah, letting go of 6,000 employees after you've reported record profits is going to leave a sour taste, especially when you're putting so much effort into the AI thing. It does send a bit of a message. Also, because my brain is slow to process multiple things at once. Thanks for the shower. Maybe say thank you to one lion for the shout outs. I just managed to verbalize it this time. Just another day in the tech industry. Yeah. You know, it's a hard thing to swallow. I do hope that companies do not downsize development teams because don't forget, we're talking about AI from our perspective here right now, but you got to remember the shinies look very shiny. And the idea of being able to ask a computer to do what you want and produce the software you need is very alluring. And the cost is not immediate. It's just, the same problem with when people when organizations now ask you to do stuff and you go off and do it, it's going to be it doesn't make sense, but it's going to happen. Businesses are going to not quite understand the true cost of doing what they're doing. Yeah. It's also the fact that software engineers get replaced by AI. Everyone does. Yeah. I still don't believe that we're going to get replaced. I just think our roles will pivot, and there'll be a big market for AI specialist developers that understand code bases that have been generated and can go in and fix those things. I think it's a different um, a different world that's on the future. It's like I said before, I said this on one line stream a couple of weeks ago. I think it's like a um, Microsoft Access opportunity where there was a lot of apps built out of Access because businesses thought they could save time and money. We've seen this before in terms of the cost savings. We don't need developers because we can just build our own stuff. We can build everything in VBA, in Excel, and in Outlook, in Access. And then when the business realizes, oh, it's not scaling, they hire developers to come in and fix it or replace it. Um, it's a challenge that it's not handling the same way. The problem stays the product owner cannot formulate, define proper specs so we are safe. Uh, I'm just, there are so many business decisions that are encouraging me to be disappointed. The technology is cool to me. Like you mentioned, I'm okay with integrating AI into my workflow. But for example, they removed a middle tier partner program offering and now have a too little. The next step up is close to triple the price, and that's too much. Yeah. Um, Neckerman, thank you for the follow. One of the things I was going to mention was the one thing that you got to be very careful of. And so to sign up to GitHub, to sign up to Copilot Studio, you have to have a business account. You can't just do it on your regular Copilot, right? So the tools they were demonstrating yesterday, you have to be a business. That code is not yours. That code is not committed to your stuff. That is there in the cloud, right? I was playing that Replit before. I can download the React application, but the deployment and stuff, that's all handled by that platform. So if Microsoft does that the same way, you are completely dependent upon their resources, completely dependent upon their cloud, completely dependent upon that. So if you build an app up there, you're there. You don't have the option of taking it down. You don't have the option. Your business is 100% there. It can't be shifted to another cloud. It can't be self-hosted. Simply, if you are, especially if you are not a development team, um, it's something to remember. And the cost is you're ransomed, right? Um, at least now AI is a replacement for Google and the boilerplate code from dev standpoint, but it's really useful for support, chatbot. Oh, 100%. There's definitely good usage of this, man. There's no doubt. And I appreciate you brought it up, right? um, um, I've got an interview in 30 minutes for a CTO role I don't want. You can go in and tell them to use AI. How how fun's that as a CTO? Just use AI. We don't need developers. Um, Save you money, pay me more. I'll use AI, generate everything, win. Um, I'm hoping I don't need to do that, but uh, um, not that my tone doesn't necessarily represent sarcasm. Um, so I think yes, Manoj, to your point, there's a really great use of AI. So, and to Canny's point, actually, one of the uses I have experimented with in Liquid Sky, I've yet to kind of focus on that, is starting with an initiative, asking it to help walk you through that and build out the components of this. So, agentic AI in Liquid Sky, even months ago, has been considered, and I think that's um, a definite use case, helping product owners formulate the actual idea in the first place. Um, yeah. Morning, guy. Hello. Hope you are well. Um, yeah. So sorry, I forget that I'm not on camera, so my pauses are less obvious. Yeah. So as far as it goes, there's a lot of tools out there. I think we do have to keep an eye on it. I think that from a development perspective, it would be incorrect or short-sighted to not keep an eye on it. But in the same, I think we should be definitely continuing to build our skill as developers, not necessarily as prompt engineers. I think our skill set is still required. And don't forget, once that AI starts feeding code back into itself, what's that going to look like? Yes, it is. I didn't know that many people cared about seeing my ugly mug in the corner of the screen. I'm feeling quite loved today. Trap, good morning. Hope you're well. I didn't um I didn't say hello last night, but I was in your stream lurking. It's good to see you streaming again. Um, um, I won't even pretend to try and explain what you were working on last night, but I worked with things like the 3DO and building libraries and tools for um, retro development. Uh, and I would highly recommend checking out your stream if that sort of stuff is of interest to you. Gil Copilot has been open sourced. Yeah, I did see some of that. It's interesting. Uh, there was an interesting take on it as far as great open source it. That like oh it's so open now we can trust that the machine isn't going to attack us. Was working on my file system, just trying to work around limitations of a kernel feature. Ah, okay. Ah, the advantage of living in the .NET world, far removed from those sorts of things, right? Um, or disadvantage. With human developers saying please and thank you promote healthy teams, with AI development those words cost too much. Yeah, I've seen those things, right? We were talking about this the other week. So I've actually stopped asking it for things politely now. I just tell it to do things where possible. Although my mannerisms still do shine through a little bit. So open sourcing, I guess, MS wants some freeware from the community since they got rid of so many people. I don't think it's about open sourcing for this. I think it's about transparency with what it's doing. Um, 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 yeah, it's definitely an interesting um, thing. Thing is, you can get different responses, so it's up to the model developer to train out those differences. Uh, it's all manipulation. Um, and yes, MS has been doing OSS for a while. They open sourced a few products recently. Many were already discussed, but the news didn't really explain that. Yeah. Um, yeah. Um, I wouldn't know. I'm a, I mean, ML engineers are not sure how LLMs work internally. Uh, I'm not sure I work internally. Yeah, it's a miracle I do. Anyway, um, ML engineers don't build models. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a world that I realize that I need to understand more what it means for me. I need to reflect. I kind of had a over the last couple of weeks. I've had a bit of a crisis of uh, um, focus in terms of where do I head. Um, do I continue on building what I'm building without any AI tooling in it for now, and hope that it is picked up? Obviously, tools like Jira are already leaning into this. I can't go that fast. I can't react that quickly. I do not have that capability. Um, so I think in my spare time, what I want to do is make sure I kind of get an idea of what tooling would be available to me and how I might effectively use that for what I'm building here. Because I don't want to get into the world of, you know, it doesn't interest me, right? I do not want to be in this world of let me write out my code as a set of commands to a machine to have it build what I want it to build. And I've proven in in six prompts, six very small pieces of requests to a machine that it can build out this, right? Um, but I don't want to be in that world. That doesn't interest me. I want to be here. I want to be here, right? Um, so I'm going to continue focusing that way. Too much 20 minutes of talking here. Ultimately, yes, we know how they work at a low level. It's just prediction, effectively a weighted decision tree. Um, isn't that what we do with code, though? Write words to machine to do the thing. I'm not asking it to. I'm expecting it to do exactly a certain thing, though. I'm not asking it to interpret what I tell it and kind of figure out what I mean and then just do what it thinks is the right thing to do. I know at some level, yes, that is exactly what's happening underneath because it could be I could use the wrong command or I could use the wrong thing to do what I thought it did, but it's a little bit more defined than that. So I don't agree that it is me just sending in a bunch of words and saying that now go off and do whatever, you know. Um, um, so I don't agree with that at all. Um, I see the similarity, but I do not agree that it is the same thing. That what we do with code is the exact same thing as what we would do with AI tooling. Um, Also, AI is too broad a term, isn't it? The different aspects that help us do what we do. I need to get better at using the right terminology at the right point. Um, Something I reflexively dislike about measuring progress by 7 of 7 issues closed in 10 minutes. Yeah. It's funny. I throughout my software development career, I have always chosen to try and tackle what comes next rather than because I met a lot of developers, especially early on in my career, that were like, get off my lawn. This is the only, no intent of a grumpy game dev. Um, but I met a lot of developers early on in my career that were very much, this is the way I've always done it. This is how it works. I don't want to learn this new thing. I've met a lot of those sorts of developers, and I chose to not be that way. I don't want to be that way. I want to learn and grow and adapt with the technology. And now I see the AI revolution or evolution, and I'm kind of fighting that a little bit, but I'm fighting it from the perspective of I realize that it is a tool that can be used effectively, and I can use that tooling and learn to use that tooling a little better, but I do not want to do the tell it what to do from a development perspective. I don't want it to go and generate an application for me. I don't want it for me to say, oh, there's a bug on the screen, which I did yesterday, right? I said there's a bug on the screen, and it's like, oh yeah, sorry about that, and it fixed the bug, right? I don't know what it fixed. I don't know why it fixed it because I built an app in React that I've never built, right? I have no idea how to read that code. It chose React because the framework set up. Now, how would I know anything different? If I was not a developer, I wouldn't know that was a React app. Yeah. And not just that, but they did lots of hand waving and didn't review any of the code or PRs, at least not during the keynote. I haven't been able to watch any of the breakout sessions. Yeah. James Montemagno and Hanselman. Do I dare listen to that one? Ooh. Both very smart people. Both people I respect and would like to listen to. I might give that a listen later. As long as they don't mention vibe coding too much, because that just creeps me out. But anyway, let's go with some coding. If you're new to the stream, I apologize for the extreme chatter, but sometimes this is the way the stream goes, and it's relevant. It's definitely relevant to what we do. So everyone is more than welcome to join in the conversation with opinions. Yeah, it's potential to make many people lazy and deploy something they don't have a clue on what the code is. Apex, hello. I like having it work on a different application, like converting the core logic of S-Track to a C# library while I do R-Tracker. Or I guess I'm working on the data import utility. But so looking last night, I appreciate it. Where's Apex? I was fortunately not able to interact. I saw you did have some chatters and some hopefully some new followers from that. You seem to have like first time chatters quite a lot there yesterday, so that was good to see. There was many slimes. Cool. Nice. I saw one of your chatters was in another stream last night that I jumped in on and was haranguing the developer. There are already a couple of studies which show current technology significantly increase code churn, reduce normalization, increase duplicate code. Directionally, like, live bad. Oh. I apologize for ads if you are stuck behind ads, as always. Go. So yesterday I got to the point of associating a team with a task, and then I produced the event. I'll close that one down. Produce the event and have an assigned team identifier on. But now what needs to happen is this event needs to get consumed into the view. So we've associated the assigned team ID with the view table. We now need to integrate that data. When updating task, when task does not exist in user assigned, yeah, so I need to tackle both these things. The reason why this is an explicit case is because there's going to be a call to acquire that thing that needs to be validated, right? So we need to validate that we actually call acquire user for the assigned user identifier. The same thing's going to happen here. Internally, the way this happens is if a team is associated, right, it will go and fetch this team by its ID. So we're not joining on GUIDs, etc., and creating slower joins. To my knowledge, it is slightly slower to join on a GUID than it is on a primary key field. So when task does not exist and team is assigned, these tests are probably not stunning. And for the sake of speed, we're going to do a little bit of a copy and paste. Let's start this running. Sorry, I have range at async. Update task. Really? I hate that it collapses automatically. Gonna set up for my interview, have a lovely stream. Maybe best of luck. May it go very well. And they offer you lots of money. So we're gonna do assign team identifier and assigned team ID. Have fun. Yeah, if you haven't been in maybe stream before, maybe as an application developer working on an application called Barely Fit. Application is almost ready for launch. There's a fitness tracking app and food tracking app, and it develops that live on stream. Sorry, stomach. And it is a great stream to be in. A little bit more adult audience, but I would highly recommend going checking it out. I'm looking forward to Barely Fit. Assigned team ID. Sorry, my concentration was on one thing and I was trying to talk about another thing at the same time, so I do apologize for that. Assigned team ID, I've obviously created it as a field. I updated the scripts to track that field. I'm not assigned user and assigned team are both nullable fields, so it's okay to just switch this out. Why user does not have that in there. We're not gonna worry about that right this second. Assigned team identifier. Acquire user is invoked. Oh, no, 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 no. That one is not that, is it? Whoa. Oh, I might have a bug. That might be a bug. Team identifier. Acquire user. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's an interesting acquire. So let's correct the wording here. So and this should be acquire team, right? Acquire team. So if you haven't seen this pattern before, or this choice before, it's probably not something that people do often. But what I'm doing here is I'm basically this acquire is when I go to create this data in the system, I may or may not have, for whatever reason, the other data. Right. I might not have received these topics yet. They might not be present in my database. But it doesn't mean that I can't go and get their ID, right? So what happens is I acquire the ID, and if this exists by that GUID in the teams table, then I will give it back the ID of that record. If it doesn't, I will create a record blank, defaulted to whatever values, on the assumption that later on it will update. What that means is on the view side of things, if data has not yet made it all the way around, which is unlikely in the view specific way, it will it will uh it will just display empty. It will display incorrectly from the view perspective, but it will not break the system. The system is not crumbling, and I do not lose this data because the other data doesn't exist yet. And I don't have to worry about, oh, well, what happens if the message hasn't arrived yet? Or let me wait for this other message to arrive. What if it never arrives? Then I've got this data stuck in limbo, and that chases you down a path you don't want to go down. So yeah. Okay, so this is going to be assign team identifier. That's going to make that work, but period assign team identifier. Let's make sure that breaks appropriately. Yeah. Let's make sure the others I seem to attach the user, and I've probably copied and pasted this a bit too much because maybe not. Maybe it's legit. I think I need to review these because I think that other test is going to break now. The risk of copy paste. Some tests are just worth doing the normal way of having the arrange actor set inside the test, and some are more worth doing it the way I normally do it. In my opinion. I'll start coding and I just completely end the conversation on AI. I did not mean to cut any conversation off. Everyone's more than welcome to continue any conversations around that. I know that I'm particularly bad when it comes to concentration. And there's always Discord if anyone wants to follow up on things there. Um, I like how that's like, oh, you got to provide a type, and it's like, no, you don't need to provide a type. Oh, we got into a conversation about AI and what it means for app development and all those sorts of things. So yeah, um, I in just 5 or 6 prompts last night, like one sentence, 2 sentence things, I managed to create an application that had planning items and tasks and requirements um, with a UI and a database. Basically, months worth of work here in 10 minutes. Yeah. But, well, no. Well, scalable by the old school way of scaling. More power. So here we go. So now we're going to pass in event dot team assign team identifier. Let's run these tests and see what fails. I also want to go back and review that user assigned test because I think it's wrong. Task does not exist and team is assigned. Acquire team is invoked and task is created. Yes, good. Still very much pro AI as a tool, not as an autonomous developer though. Yeah, I feel though that's the way. Basically, I don't know if you watched any of the Microsoft presentations yesterday, particularly the keynote. Um, but it's just there's a lot of focus and energy put into that direction. Okay, so we expected a quiet team, we don't get a quiet team. Surprise, surprise. Um, so create new task, tenant ID task, right? So we create a task and then we call apply acquired values. Apply acquired values is basically if we've set these things, then we would need to I feel like I can switch this in some way, but anyway. Um, assign team identifier is not null. Existing dot assigned team ID equals await sender dot send new acquire team dot command. See, it still wants to do user there. Value cancellation token. Come on. Stop squealing. Value type can be null. Ah, because I didn't. It's filling it in for me, and yeah, that was Copilot helping me there. This thing got turned off quickly. JetBrains AI is too um, obstructive. Okay, so there we go. So that passes. Um, I don't think this test is correct though, because user identifier. I think that should be that. Acquire created user is called. Why didn't you fail? Why did you not fail? I just completely changed out the value and it still worked. Oh, I get why I understand it. Because I can't differentiate between the calls. That's why it still works. That's a subtle bug. It passes because I am calling it, but it passed before because I am calling it, right? I was testing the same thing here as here. That's true. I can't differentiate between when I call them. Um, so that's a subtle problem. Did I just okay? This one is when updating task and team is um why can't you differentiate? Because the call happened. I don't know. I'm Mr. Horn, hello. So all I'm validating is that I actually call a quiet user for that thing. Um, I was, I basically had a copy and pasted this there, and it was validating this case twice, and that's true. It did happen. It wasn't even if I put one there and say it was called once. It was called once. That's true. So I wouldn't have caught it. So it's just a subtle um thing because I'm setting it up right. I'm setting up. Okay, if I call a quiet because I'm calling a quiet user. Um, actually, yeah, this is the team one. Sorry, I'm calling a quiet user twice, right? Once for the created and once for the assigned. Um, and because I have that, I can't tell the difference. Hmm. Um, so yeah, that's fun. Okay, so let's we still do need to do this when updating task and team is assigned. The reason I was hesitant to do this then is because essentially, um, update on in this context doesn't mean quite the same as it does on the other side, right? So what we determined yesterday is we're not going to allow you to update the team. Once it's assigned to a team, it's assigned to a team. If that need arises later on, we'll address that as a separate concern. But right now, you can assign the user to it when you update, but you can't assign the team to it. But the team is the team is the team. So once it's created, it's assigned to that team. Um, update in this context means it's just getting a new version of that object, right? It's getting the updated version of the object. Um, so we could potentially have that data there. And is it really? Yeah, I can't ignore it, but it's not likely to happen. It would be wrong to not account for this. Would it? It's where the camera helps show that I'm not just sat here just looking into space. Um, you know what? No, no, it is the same case. It is the exact same thing. If it's going to receive the event, it's going to receive the event. It can only receive it the first time. Yes, we're gonna live with that for right a second. Okay. So um we added the column, we added the behavior, we added the tests, we updated some of the other tests. Yeah. Include assign team on task in view. So the next piece of that is obviously the actual view side of this. That is a little simpler. The entity in the view task will need an assigned team. So we have assigned user. We're just gonna have a public virtual team assigned team public int. Okay. So that's the view side of things handled. And one last thing, configuration, consumers, no, infrastructure, team, we're ignoring ID. So even when we include the team, we will not produce its internal ID. So we should now be able to run this. We should be able to view this. That task for that team was probably integrated anyway. Yeah, assigning task to alpha. So the interesting thing there is, can I beat the offsets there? Tasks, update offsets, tasks. Oh, I did. Nice. This was still starting up. So, actually, that won't matter one little bit. Because of the fact that I just did what I did. I just chose not to deal with the update. This is the exact case the update would have captured. It would have assigned the team even though the record existed to correct it. Oh well, we just need to create another task for a team. So let's create another task. Requirements, estimate should be visible. Task should still remain assigned to team. This task should make it all the way around. Assigned to a team. Quantum. So we save the task. Over team. How the hell did that update? Of course it did. Of course it did. Because I shared the same code. Just because I didn't test it doesn't mean it doesn't work. That by the way worked because when I update the task, even in the update existing task, I call apply acquired values. So it's the same code path for both create and update. So the fact that I didn't test it or write a unit test around it doesn't matter. The fact is it will always apply the acquired values. So I update all the fields and then do the apply so that it's consistent in how it works, whether you're creating or updating. So it did work. Yeah. So this is assigned to team Quantum. This is assigned to team Alpha. Now on the view side of things, if we go and go over here and go to tasks, backlog, components, task table, team, assigned team.name. We need to make that actually function, because that would be get all update status task query. Oh, I did a quite interesting. By interesting, I mean terrible way of doing this. So we should be able to do assign team. ID, identifier, name. Is that enough? Gonna guess no. I think we probably need on the task to represent the assigned team. We do have the assigned team. Assigned team. What don't you like? Unexpected execution error. Network. GraphQL. Invalid column name. Assigned team ID. Yes, that would be that way, wouldn't it? We forgot to do something. And by we, I mean me. So I put the assigned team ID on the model. The way that this GraphQL piece works, for me, I don't know whether this is a good way of doing this. I'm still trying to figure out what is the right way for me. But what I've done is I have the tables underneath. The tables are what I update, so they contain all the data I need. I then create these view objects, which is actually the things I want to expose to GraphQL. That way I can condense data, I can calculate data, I can do all that and then expose that to GraphQL. And this way, the GraphQL is only ever doing no tracking queries against views. And it allows me to consolidate a lot of behavior where I need to. It doesn't mean I end up recreating the structure of the database as views, but I feel this works pretty well and allows me to limit the amount of data I'm exposing. So yeah, so what we need to do is go here, do t.assigned team ID. Okay, that, and script that out straight away so we don't lose it. I have not been very good at this piece yet. Add assigned team to task SQL. Okay, so this now should work. And there's the teams. There we go. So now we know which teams they're assigned to. We're not allowing reassignment of team. we'll leave assigned user here for right now. I think that's okay. But yeah. Ultimately, we don't want that either. Team. I'm gonna say team. I'm not even gonna say assigned team right this second, because again, I don't have the concept of reassigning the team at this point. Still don't understand why it's not pulling planning item through. One here. Let me see about that. Payload, users for tenant, tasks, preview, tasks, sprint. I need to filter out assigning task. That'd be why I don't pull the planning item anymore. See, it's not even in the query. It's very costly. The amount of data I'm pulling right this second would be extremely costly. I probably don't want to do that in the long term. Associated requirement planning item. Title. Requirements. Dot. We're going to go with that requirement. I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So, what I should have paid more attention to what I was looking at there. Task store, task query feature, fetch all. So I have requirement, then planning item, then ID and title. That is what I'm missing. Requirement, then planning item, ID and title. There you go. That looks better. That's a bug fixed. So this is the actual planning item for which that is associated. It looks like I've screwed up the link a little bit there. Yeah. Um, planning items. Right, because I no longer have a single view. That's interesting. So what we'll do is we'll remove that for right this second. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That is progress. So if we go back to Liquid Sky, tasks, sprint 05 2025. So again, the goal of what I'm doing now is to try and by the end of May get the next set of features in there. So getting the sprints and stuff in there, getting the ability to assign the teams properly, view only sprints that are associated with teams you're enabled on, etc. Try and manage that data a little bit better, and provide again that feature to support teams as a whole. So update the task table to contain assigned team, update the task receiver to capture assigned team, create script update for task to include assigned team column, and update task view to include assigned team with ID navigation. That's done. View sprint, view receivers. So now the next thing will be to do team. I actually didn't do a good job of representing the UI there. But again, I'm still trying to figure out what it means for tasks and planning items. Now I'm seeing it. Now I'm working with the actual tooling that I've been building. What does it mean for some of this stuff? How would I recommend using this? So like I've gone over a few times now, the entire tasks concept. And again, if you are interested, if you want to ask questions, please feel free. The stream is, yes, I'm coding. However, I'm also open to questions, thoughts, and opinions on what I'm doing as well. So please feel free. But anyway, so as I've broken these down, these tasks, these requirements, I should be able to define a new team. I broke down the tasks for that aspect. Sprints is the next thing coming, right? Creating a task and assigning it to a team, right? That's the stuff I've just worked on. I'm still trying to figure out what is the right balance of requirement to planning item. As I've said, I reflect back on it now and I think, well, teams was probably an initiative, not a planning item. Several of these could be rolled up into single planning items. So introducing the concept of teams, assigning a team to a user, right? So we've done 3 out of these 7 requirements, right? We can now assign a team. We can go to, really need to make the UI consistent. The UI is just driving me crazy. I think it'd look a lot better and feel a lot better if I could get the UI sorted out. I can go into a user and I can assign the teams that a user associated with. Benefit there, if you have a QA team and a dev team, both of them can be associated with each other's teams so that they can see each other's work, but they are separate teams. Um, so we've done that part. We've done Being able to define a team, that was done, and then being able to associate, creating a task and assigning it to a team now. Right, so now we switch to sprints. So let's get these stuff committed. Include assign team ID on view date. Push that. On this side of things, produce team select list. Place user assignment in create task with team assignment. And again, that's an opinion I have in terms of when the task is initially created. It should not be assigned to a person. You shouldn't be able to just create a task and assign it to someone. You need to assign it to a team, and the team can determine who gets it. If ultimately it lands on someone, that's fine. They can pick it up and work with it. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Ultimately, your goal as a product manager will be to create a task, assign it to a team, or even a team leader. I mean, tasking is development focused, but the development team should be able to go off and say, oh yeah, well Mary's working on that one. So yeah. Apply assigned team to task. And then display place assigned to column in task table with assigned team. Correct display issue for buying item now being nested under requirement. And again, what I had to do there was just make sure that we're only doing that if we have a requirement attached, because you can still have a task that's not attached to a requirement, although not in the current UI. Okay, so we have that. Let's push that. Oh, did I really do all that? Oh, I didn't branch it. I just pushed it. Oh well, never mind. Oh well. It is what it is. It is what it is. I'm not playing around trying to correct that. Right now I am the solo developer working in this. It's not going to harm anything if I do it this way. Not ideal. I probably should not be doing that, pushing to main. I should definitely prevent that from happening in the future. However, yeah. Okay, nothing to push. So let's go and get that merged. So two pieces that need to have PRs. Right. This one has the assigned team identifier. And this one introduces assigning a team to a task. Unit tests routinely do fail on the server side, but that is mainly because I have the project's broken out, and for some reason I cannot figure out how to get that workflow to do what I want it to do. Let's just go and run all the tests and make sure on the client side it's, or on the development side, it's functioning properly. There you go. So our unit tests are passing, even if the server disagrees. Again, this is failing because it actually uses this library. It has to pull in this repository, and something's breaking there that, again, getting around to that is yet another challenge. So we introduce tasks against assign team identifier against tasks. We have the team ID on the view. We update the view of tasks to include the assigned team ID. Yeah, so this integration event is part of this library. But that PR, that this branch exists for the exact same name, and that's what it's meant to do, but it doesn't seem to pick it up. But that's assigned team identifier. So let's get that merged. Bypass rules, squash and merge. Yeah. Delete the branch. That's fine. So that's just setting that on the integration. Again, added the task. We have the identifier. The task behavior, again, experimenting with changing up how I'm going to break out the code to make it a little bit more readable so that the fields are stored separately to the actual domain behavior. I kind of like this. I'll probably continue to follow this pattern. It does mean it's a bit more readable. Making that partial, putting the fields in the correct order, and setting the new field for assigned team. And obviously removing the behavior that I've now moved to the other class, or the other file. Create the item group to show that it's dependent, that's fine. Include the mapping to the private field for entity framework. On the post, switching out assigned user identifier for assigned team when you create a task. And then in the integration for view, applying that assigned team ID. On the entities of task in the view domain, again, assigned team identifier, receiving that thing, updating the global usings, updating the unit tests for the tasks, and the task is no team assigned, team is assigned, adding a task with requirements. Yeah. These are just updates to the fields. Updates to the fields, updates to the fields, updates to the fields, updates to the fields. When task does not exist and team is assigned, acquire create user, created user is called, acquire tenant user, acquire team is invoked, assign team. I need to standardize the naming there. There's some different verbiage that I'm using, which is probably not conducive to correcting this test, even though it will still pass. Making sure the other nullable fields are handled, and the global usings. I think we're good. Merge, bypass, squash and merge. Delete the branch. Okay, so now let's go back to here and check out development. Check out development. Development update. Foundation development update. Okay. So associate user with teams. Delete that branch. deleting that branch, cleaning up, making sure that I don't have any leftover uh, branching locally. Um, like I do have some other local things like stash features and stuff, but I really don't like having too many here because it can create confusion, especially if I start jumping back and forth between branches. So I kind of like to be on a branch as soon as possible. Okay, quality gate C reliability rating and new code required. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Really? That dropped my reliability rating from an A to a C. Go away. Um, so this is complaining I'm doing a quality check on doubles. Um, yeah, we'll address that later. I, I I do not want to get into the world of jumping through hoops trying to fix a load of these things right this second while the code is working. Again, the application is of such a size at this point that I can't keep diverting and tackling these things. Yes, they're going to bite me eventually, right? Yes, I'm going to have to review them. There's no uh yeah, see um these are unit tests, right? Blockers, severity blocker. Um it doesn't know how to interpret them, right? Is expecting an assertion and I don't give it an assertion, so it considers that a blocker. Um how do I tell it the pattern? So I've got to go down this path, right? It's determining these because I have um, my own library code because I don't like the word should. Um, I have my own library code in place that is actually doing the assertion underneath. I'm just making it readable. Um, but what does that mean for tools like this? Again, it's a lot of work to take on this, and it's not that I don't want to do it, but I have to make progress on the project at the same time. I can't just. And this is a realistic sacrifice that teams make on a daily basis. Um, if it was a professional product, I would make more of an argument for going spending the time. But at the same time, you have to move a product forward. You can't just keep getting stuck on the oh well, it'd be nice to clean this up. Or, oh, it's telling us this is bad. We should fix this. That gets expensive real quick. So on with the next feature is the way this goes for now. Um, um, sprints. The concept of sprints. Wow. I'm gonna probably rebuild all that. I checked it all out and then wasn't. Well, that was never changed, was it? So the idea here is that a sprint will be associated with a um, team. As a user of that team, I can view sprints that are associated with me. Phil, how are you doing? How are things today? Sorry, I forget I'm not on the camera today. I'm sat here just checking stuff out while I'm waiting for this. Um, okay, that's up and running. Let's go. So right now, this is one massive big backlog, right? And yes, this is me putting fluff in the application to test data, etc. Right? There's a lot of garbage in here. However, um, the goal will be very much to filter this by a backlog I care about. So the team, what I want to do is in the immediate case, this list should only show items for teams I'm associated with, right? So um, that would be a filter, probably on the server side, because we know who you are. Um, so it would only ever show you work for teams you are associated with. When we go to sprints, when we create a sprint, the idea will be to include a drop down. Which team is this for, right? And again, only teams you can actually see should be available to you here. And then this drop down again will only be a list of sprints that are associated with teams you're allowed to see, right? That is the goal. I don't see any benefit right now in showing you work for teams that are not you, are not associated with you. We can address that later, I feel. I don't want to do the filter. I'll probably not do the filtering on the client side because that is quite costly. But let's just go and review what I put in so far. Include a team on the sprint entities. That is just including the fact that the team exists as a sprint. Assign a sprint to a team. So this is producing the actual. So let's go to tasks. Let's see how I brought this down. Okay, include team on sprint entities. We're going to associate a sprint with a team, include team identifier on sprint entity, create alter script for sprint to include team identifier, right? So that's on the backend side of the application or the backend. Cannot create a sprint without assigning it to a team. So we've determined from a requirement that you have to have a team. That's what this is spanning off of. Assign a sprint to the team. So off the same requirement, modify the add sprint API endpoint to receive the team identifier. Modify the application code to capture the team identifier. Include assigned team identifier on sprint integration event and update the integration to publish the assigned team. So again, similar to what I've just done is go through and attach the team onto the sprint. Update the other side, capture that on the assigned team ID. We've got all the code in place for the acquire, etc. This is a relatively simple and well-known process at this point, which again is why the consistency of the pointing or the estimations. I know what this involves. I know that it's a bit of code. There's some unit tests, but it's overall well known. Right now, this application has a lot of code, but there's not a lot of behavior to the application. There's not a lot of rules or things to concern. On a case by case basis, it's just adding the features. So update the view receivers. So this is actually integrating that. This is updating the view side to include the columns. This is actually capturing those things and yeah, including the sprint. And then when creating a sprint, provide a drop down on teams, right? No worries, Apex. Thank you very much for joining. Don't think I did this before, but Apex is a Godot developer on stream. Stream several times a week. Been building a game for a while now, and it's really starting to come together. He's been putting behavior trees and whatnot in there, and it is and unit testing in Godot C#. So it's very fascinating to watch and very very involved, but highly worth checking out Apex. Have a great day, Apex. Um, so yeah, and this is only the beginning though, right? Because there's a little bit more to this that I'm actually missing. Um, yeah, when a developer team lead goes to assign a task to a sprint, the sprints available should only be open sprints assigned to that team. Um, Creating a task assigned to a team, that's the one. We've done that one. And then this one, when a sprint is active and the task is taken by a user, it should default to them as the assigned user. That's a stretch. This one, however, is useful. But like I said before, one thing I'm learning is the exploration of the problem is actually very important here. Interview complete. Nice. How'd it go? You've been gone for an hour? You were missed, yes. I was just seeing if you were appearing on Twitch today at all. Or, yeah, I was looking for you. I think it went well. I rambled a lot and didn't really answer his questions, but he seemed happy. Nice. I have a tendency to do that. And I think streaming's probably made it a lot worse as well. Um, cool, cool. Well, I will be hanging out with you while I work today. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot more to this, and again, um, from a planning item perspective, this is too big, right? There's too much in terms of requirements here. So one of the things this is actually identifying is the fact that I probably need some features to be able to say when the dev team says, whoa, 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 that is way too much work, right? Or even the product team says, this requirement actually belongs as its own planning item. We probably need to be able to promote a requirement to its own planning item. Once, especially when it's tasked, right? We probably need to be able to promote a requirement up to a planning item and define requirements. So that's an interesting challenge, but it's one that is necessary. Also, the ability to delete or remove requirements. But even here, right, in terms of this is an initiative, Teams is an initiative, not a planning item. The ability to go in here and filter by team, by sprint, etc., is important. The ability to manage the actual teams across the application is going to be much more involved. So yeah, I'm not allowing for several pieces here, which is an interesting challenge. But yeah, every feature I add seems to add 10 more possible features, all that have real value. And the only way I'm actually identifying a lot of these is by dog fooding the application, right? I'm using the application to test the application. This is the real stuff, right? This is not test data like this. It is actual. I'm planning the application with the application. This requirement, like, is this enough? Did this answer any questions? I've called the requirement sprints as a develop, and it's meant to be catchy. It's meant to kind of tell you, um, but is it appropriate? Time will tell. So let's get the bare minimum in here. Also, maybe what is for dinner? Pasta. Also, I didn't see that comment. Uh, Hot dog, right? Um, I should go and check on it. Yeah, check on pasta. Um, um, So okay, let's get the bare minimum of this stuff in today. Um, so what we're going to do is, because this is going to be um, all. Now, what I'm doing here, by the way, if anyone hasn't seen this before, is this foundation project here is actually not part of the main project. It is actually a separate project entirely, a separate repository entirely. But I'm allowed to include it. And by including it as a folder in here, as well as including these projects in here, this foldering is of my choice for this. This is solution foldering, right? This is just my organization. But these foundation libraries here are added, and this foundation now appears here because I've got that Git library included in my code. So at a directory level, right? Project Next has Liquid Sky and Foundation here and here, right? They're at the same level, but Foundation has, it's not directly in the Liquid Sky project. So what that means is that we share this. This project is actually shared between two different application stacks. Control Tower also uses Foundation for shared behaviors and the events right now, right? It keeps that kind of smooth. Also means we don't have any NuGet packages flying around and have to build NuGet packages to keep track of. You know, we can commit things and merge things and pull things as we need. And it works that way. But from a representation perspective, it's done this way. So if I had a new branch here, I can say individual repositories or all, and it'll create the same branch for all the repositories I'm referencing. So feature include team on, no, actually require team for sprint. So we get here. Our first task, go back over here to tasks, right? Include team on sprint entities. This is our first task. We're going to include the team identifier and sprint entity and alter the scripts for sprint to include team identifier. This is a simple one. Sprints live inside of tasking, right? This is all around tasks. Is again a really poor choice. I think this becomes work items or something. That's going to be quite the refactor when that happens, but it is going to happen. So sprint exists inside of tasks. Again, I think there's some stuff in here. This has some extra behavior in it, in terms of this can transition to, which is a value type in the domain. Right, sprint status is a value, and basically this has some rules around it as to what status it can be transitioned to. So if it's complete, it can't be transitioned back to open or active. If it's active, it can only be transitioned to complete. It can't be transitioned back to open. So there's this is a bit of an experiment, but at the same time, kind of useful. But being that I'm in here, I'm going to create sprint.behavior. Behavior. No, that was bad. Partial. Woo. Partial. And this is going to be called partial sprint. And then we're going to drag that there. And that does that association for us. Similar to task. Oh, yeah. Behave. Do ding bat. Again, I'm just doing this to try and clean up the actual code a little bit. What did I move out here? I moved everything from the create down. So I'm just trying to make sure that the model and the behavior is not cluttering one big file. and I think it helps clean things up a little bit. So, you know, the object being created is fine. Okay, so um, create behaviors file to up sprint. Let's see appropriately. This is the design choice, right? I'm experimenting. I'm trying to figure out how do I make the code a bit more readable, a bit more manageable, while still providing the features I know that I want to add in here. Maybe there's a better pattern. Maybe there's something that cleans this up later, but I won't know. So constantly tinker with the design. So this is going to be GUID team identifier, right? Public GUID team identifier. This is a required field. We've already said it. It was determined by the requirements that cannot create a sprint without assigning it to a team. This has to be assigned to a team. Therefore, there's no questions. To change this, we need to go into here and we need to add builder.property. E goes to p.team identifier as field team identifier. Right, so that's allowing us to map to entity framework. That handles that. Surly, good afternoon. Hope you are well. And create the alter script. So we do need to now go into tasks, DBO, tables, sprints, modify table, new column, team. I don't know what data group uses, but it's like constantly checking that this to preview this means that it's really easy to miss characters in here. Hey RJ, how you doing? And this is a unique identifier, right? Not null. Team identifier. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Wait, 6 months time. Ouch. Do you not ask? Normally I kind of ask what is the timeline on the process. That's something like that, right? All IT meetings start. I had one of them today. Not much point in going because I'll be gone by the end of this week. Oh. Oof. Let's not bring that about, eh? So what do I do here? Because I need to default this. This is an interesting one. Okay, maybe enjoy your pasta. I'm gonna be finishing up here shortly, but they're just done and I'm still in the middle of the layoffs. I took the voluntary route. Voluntary. Oof. Yeah, it's a it's a rough one. I do hope everyone lands comfortably in the end. Okay, so again, I got to remember that I'm not on camera today, so I have a bit of a dilemma here. And this is a new challenge that I've got to now figure out. So, a team must be associated with a sprint, but there are existing sprints for which I have no teams, right? Because even when I push this feature live, there's no teams. I haven't defined any teams yet, but I've got a requirement on having a team. Do I make it nullable, or do I wipe out data? Right? Is the challenge. Um, what I think actually needs to happen here is this can't be just added as a column. I have to generate a script to um, migrate this data. But I think I have to populate an initial team. But this is the first instance of hitting a point of which I've introduced a feature that I'm saying has to behave a particular way, but can't do it out of the box because data exists. No teams exist on any existing system, right? So teams don't exist in this deployed version. I create a default team and reference it. Do I? Yeah, how do I do this? There's the whole, well, just make it nullable to start with, and then once teams are introduced, to come back and do it. But we know how that'll go. That'll go 6 months from now. And we're like, why is team required, but it's nullable on the database table? That's a silly decision, right? I don't want to do that because it leaves an immediate lie in the code. Team cannot be null. Ugh, no. Yeah. To do at some random point in the future, make this not nullable and clean up the rubbish, right? What? No. um, I'm not allowing it to be nullable. I'm not saying I don't want it to be nullable. I want it to be not nullable, but I don't have a team, so I have a chicken and egg. I have to consider what does that, and this is the first time I've actually come up against this problem. Why can't you create a sprint without assigning a team to it? Because a sprint should have a team. It should belong to a team. It doesn't belong to anything but a team. There's no need to have a general sprint. The entire focus is to make a sprint for a team. So, hmm, they make it non-nullable now. Why do you need to temporarily? I don't need to temporarily allow it to be nullable. I'm trying to figure out what it means to, because I can't include the column as a non-nullable column because it's then got to have a value on the existing data, right? So I've got two choices. Make it nullable now. Well, no, I don't. I have multiple choices. I've got to think through them, right? But if I make it nullable now, then I can add the column, and it's fine. And as I associate teams, I can work with that. Obviously, this is a development decision, so that development decision is going to impact the future. So I'm trying to verbalize some of these thoughts, right? Um, I know what other developers would do. They'd make it nullable to make it work. And then all the code would say it can't be nullable, but the data table would say it can't be null. It can be nullable. It would lie from day one. And so anyone coming to look at it in the future be like, well, it says nullable in the database, but it's not nullable. There's no code that allows it to be null. And what that is there's that rule that exists that says it can't be null in the code, but the database lies. And I don't like that idea, right? So my other option is to create a default team, capture that default team ID, and associate all existing data with a default team. And then you can change that team name in the future. But that's a bad choice anyway, because it means that all data will be defaulted to default team or whatever. So I'm just trying to think through that workflow and what does it mean to introduce that. I could put an empty GUID. I could put a 000 GUID in there. It means all these sprints disappear the moment that you you go live, and you can't associate. You can't edit a sprint. So now do I have another requirement that you can now associate a sprint with a different team just to support that case? So I'm trying to verbalize the fact that I'm trying to avoid lying in the code at the cost of potentially having to introduce features that really aren't necessary in the design that I intended. But do I develop my way out of the box, or do I leave some lies in there in the hope that it will keep things, flowing? I mean, no matter what, these sprints disappear the moment that they're there anyway. So I do need to basically associate, or basically sprints are useless. Now, this isn't a major problem, right? I can write some scripts to do this, or I can, clean this up later. But this is a challenge. This is a challenge that I haven't faced yet. This concept of I need to migrate data. Interesting. Yeah. But anyway, it is 9:08. I have a job I need to do. Migrating data, how hard can it be? Yeah, it never gets screwed up. Data migration is always easy. Yeah. But I do appreciate the questions. The reason I stream this stuff is for these sorts of moments where I'm sharing a fork in the road, a problem that a lot of us face, and there's an easy way, but it leaves a lie. So what do we do next? I gotta figure this out. However, that is not for today. Harish, hello, how are you doing? Welcome in. I do apologize, unfortunately. You have joined, unfortunately, at the end of the stream. Don't forget, it is Wednesday. OneLine streams on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. OneLine is another .NET developer, an amazing developer who shares his workday, and I would highly recommend checking out. If you are interested in asking more questions about this, if you have thoughts and opinions on Liquid Sky, if you want to test Liquid Sky, you are able to. Liquid Sky is available. You can go into Discord and get more details on that, and you are able to play with it. The only thing I ask is that if you do play with it, please provide some feedback. Please, I'm not looking for ideas. I'm not looking to steal ideas, but what I would like to know is, how do you feel about it? What do you think about it? Is it useful? can you see what direction it's heading in? Is it solving problems you think it doesn't need to solve? Right? Good or bad feedback is good. Right? Yes. I would like to steal ideas. The AI needs more ideas. um, I stream Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. Eastern. Obviously, I'm overlapping today. Yeah. More than welcome to jump in Discord, ask any further questions if you have any interest in chatting about technology or software development in general. My Discord is always there for that sort of stuff. Build is going on this week. Microsoft Build is, if you are into .NET development, worth checking out. There's a lot of AI stuff, but it is still worth checking out. And from a professional development perspective, it's always worth keeping an eye on the pulse of the technology stacks you are working in. Do not stagnate. Yeah. And yeah. Zons, good morning. Good, hope you are well. Yeah. I assume Google is going the same direction in terms of the way they are laying things out. But I must go. I must go do some work. I have some stuff to get done before several meetings this afternoon. So I will return tomorrow with more of this. I will either have an answer or I will have more questions, and we'll see where this goes. But thank you for joining me. I do appreciate you. Today we are going to go and raid Fullbox. Fullbox is a game developer, has built an app, a game really recently released called Block Shop, which if you like puzzle games, I would highly recommend checking out. It is very fun and challenging and hair-tearing. So thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Napalm, hello, and goodbye. I will catch you later. Take care all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.